We spend a lot of time talking about running backs and wide receivers, but to be honest with you, quarterback is the most important position in both regular redraft leagues as well as your dynasty formats to actually gain an edge and win your league. So what I want to do in this video is I want to dive into the next group of quarterbacks. I mean, we already know the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. We already know the elite level quarterbacks of today, but I want to try to rank these guys that are 24, 25 years old and determine, should we be taking Brock Purdy? Should we be going Tua? Should we be going Trevor Lawrence at the very beginning of our dynasty startups? Now, the first thing that I want to do is just set a baseline of what happened this year from a fantasy perspective, right? If we're looking at quarterback scoring, you had Allen, number one, then Hurts, Dak, Lamar, Purdy, Cousins, Stroud, Howell, Richardson, Flacco, Mahomes, Fields, Herbert, Kyler, Love, Goff, then Lawrence. Now, obviously, with a lot of these players, small sample, right? You can throw Richardson out of here. You can throw Flacco out of here. That doesn't really matter. Someone like Sam Howell, while maybe he was at the top of fantasy scoring, we understand that, yeah, from a real life perspective, he wasn't great, and there's no guarantee that he is the starting quarterback for Washington next season. But I really want to dive into what we have with a few of these key names that I believe can be the faces of the future going forward for the NFL. Now, I first want to start with Tua. Now, Tua is the quarterback out of this list that I love this season. I mean, simply because we went back to the time he was coming out of high school. We said, oh, okay, well, this was the best prospect in the class. Then you go over and you look at his time at Alabama. And at Alabama, Tua has a career average for his adjusted yards per pass attempt higher than anybody else in college football history. Then he goes to the NFL, and last season, he was top 3 in the NFL in adjusted yards per pass attempt alongside Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. So if you were just tracking down what you had with Tua throughout his entire football career, Tua's always been an elite level quarterback. This is why we went all in on Waddle last year. This is why we went all in on Tua this season. And Tua continues to go out there and play extremely well. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to not only look at Tua's career statistics, which we can look at some basic underlying numbers, such as his passing yards per game, which is just on the straight linear line up, ladies and gentlemen. Starts off as a rookie, 181 yards per game. Second year player, 204. Third year player, 272. And now this year, 284. Just going up, which you love to see. You love to see that he's been an efficient quarterback over the past 2 seasons now. 9.2 adjusted yards per pass attempt in 2022. Then he has 8.6 adjusted yards per pass attempt in 2023. But a big thing I want to do is dive in historically and try to figure out exactly how impressive this is. So we went over to the RotoViz screener and I set a couple thresholds. I wanted to look at all quarterbacks that were 25 years old or younger that posted a similar season to Tua since the year 2000. Before the year 2000, it's really not going to matter too much in that the NFL was so wildly different that looking at how a quarterback performed in 1980 really doesn't show anything about what happens 40 years later. But if we're going to look at Tua, we are going to be looking at quarterbacks with a comparable passing adjusted yards per pass attempt, which if you're looking at adjusted yards per pass attempt, it's going to take your yards per attempt and give a negative mark for interceptions and a positive mark for touchdowns. In my mind, it's probably the best statistic you can use to evaluate quarterbacks, even if it is very difficult to evaluate these guys straight up. We're going to be taking his passing yards per game, and we're only going to be looking at quarterbacks that were able to have at least 13 games played. I don't need some random quarterback who stepped in for 6 games that played great. No, you have to do it for the entire season. So the quarterbacks that were able to do this were Tua and CJ Stroud, both in 2023. Now, I don't think we have to talk about CJ Stroud in this video. I have CJ Stroud as a top 5 quarterback in my dynasty rankings. Over on the flockfantasy.com community rankings, you can see that he is a top 5 guy there as well. And yeah, of course, if you ever wanted to pull up the flockfantasy.com rankings, the community rankings are completely free. You can find that link in the description or in the comment section. Ton of free stuff over there. We had Dynasty Trade Calculator. There's some stuff behind a paywall if you're interested in like my own rankings or premium content or unlimited use with the Trade Calculator. You can sign up to flockfantasy.com, promo code FLOCK. You'll get 30% off any subscription. Plus, you'll be getting yours truly breaking down your fantasy football team with a podcast. But outside of that, yeah, Joe Burrow in 2021. Joe Burrow, very good. Joe Burrow, consensus top 5 dynasty asset. Josh Allen, 2020. Josh Allen, very good. Josh Allen, a consensus top 5 dynasty asset. Justin Herbert, 2020. Justin Herbert, very good. Consensus round 1 dynasty startup pick. Patrick Mahomes, 2019. Patrick Mahomes, very good. Consensus number 1 overall asset. Jared Goff, 2018. Now, Goff is the one guy on this list where I do think you can maybe draw a red flag for Tua, even though Goff looks phenomenal as of right now. And then you had Peyton Manning back in the year 2000. So if you're looking at what Tua has been able to do, he's been able to put himself in a class of elite level quarterbacks after being one of the best high school prospects, after being one of the best college quarterbacks of all time. And now we're seeing this in the NFL. I'm willing to buy in. I mean, if you're looking at the comp with Jared Goff, I mean, it's a fair thing to say, well, Mason, are we sure that Tua's not just this year's Jared Goff? It's a fair thing to bring up, and it is a possibility. I don't necessarily think that it is super likely, but you do have Goff excelling in a great system. You have Tua excelling in a great system. And our next guy excelling in a great system as well, Brock Purdy. I mean, obviously, you have a lot of conversations surrounding the MVP discussion this year, where a lot of people are making an argument, oh, Brock Purdy's the MVP, Brock Purdy's the MVP. And a lot of other people are saying, no, I mean, it's all Deebo Samuel. It's all Christian McCaffrey. It's all Kyle Shanahan. It's all CMC. It's all George Kittle. It's all Brandon Ayuk. I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to try to look at this from a fantasy football perspective. Obviously, Brock Purdy is in the best situation you could ever imagine. This is why I was very excited to draft Trey Lance, because I thought Lance was stepping into this situation with rushing upside. And then, of course, Brock Purdy happened. But yeah, if you're looking at Purdy, phenomenal start to his career, where over 2 years now, he's averaged 9.8 adjusted yards per pass attempt. This past season, he had 273.5 passing yards per game. And now Brock Purdy is 15-3. By the time you're watching this after the Cardinals game, probably 16-3 as an NFL quarterback through his entire career. So Purdy has been exceptional. And you can make a strong argument it's because of his situation. But I want to go through and I want to look at exactly how good has he been. So Brock Purdy is 24 years old this season. So I wanted to look at the same exact thing that we did with Tua, but look at quarterbacks that were 24 years old or younger that post similar seasons to Brock Purdy. You had Patrick Mahomes in 2019. You had Deshaun Watson in 2018. You had Tua last year. You had Goff in 2018. And then you had Brock Purdy this season as well. So with Purdy, this is a great company to be in. I mean, you make an argument, oh, maybe Tua's system. Oh, maybe Goff is a system. Oh, maybe Purdy's system. It doesn't matter. If these guys score fantasy points, it's all I care about. I'm not voting for the MVP. And for this reason, I currently do have both Brock Purdy as well as Tua as top 12 quarterbacks in my personal dynasty rankings, just to really illustrate how good these guys have been. If you're looking at an adjusted yards per pass attempt mark, Purdy's number 1, Tua's number 2 in the NFL right now, and Purdy's number 1 by a wide margin. He's at 10.4 adjusted yards per pass attempt, and the only quarterbacks that have been able to come close to 10.4 adjusted yards per pass attempt since the year 2000, regardless of their age. Rodgers in 2011, Peyton Manning in 2004, Matt Ryan 2016, Mahomes 2018, Rodgers 2020, Watson 2020, Rodgers 2014, Brady 2007, Manning 2013, Russell Wilson 2015. All either Hall of Fame quarterbacks or borderline Hall of Fame quarterbacks. That is how good Brock Purdy has been. So I'm going to have Brock Purdy top 12 in my personal dynasty rankings. I have Tua top 12 in my personal dynasty rankings. And I have both of them ahead of Trevor Lawrence right now, which is interesting because if you go over to flockfantasy.com, you'll see in the community rankings that Lawrence is currently at the very top. If you're looking at quarterbacks, Lawrence is at 17 overall, whereas you have Tua at 20 overall, Brock Purdy at 24 overall. These are going to be in the Dynasty Superflex community rankings. Like I said, in my own rankings, I have both Tua and Purdy top 12. That's just me. And the reason that I'm going to have Lawrence lower than them is while, yeah, if you're looking at his career adjusted statistics, you're looking at, say, 6.4 adjusted yards per pass attempt, 234 passing yards per game, which isn't great, but I don't care about what he's done throughout his entire NFL career. I really care about what he's done this past season, because if you're going back to his rookie year, you had Urban Meyer. We can't really count that. Lawrence really hasn't done anything special on paper. I mean, he does comp to some quarterbacks that have been great in the past, right? Like if you're looking at 24-year-old quarterbacks post a similar season to Lawrence since the year 2000, you have Andrew Luck and Joe Burrow. I mean, those guys were great. You'd be super excited if Lawrence turns into Joe Burrow. You'd be super excited if he turns into Andrew Luck. But you have a lot of other names that just aren't inspiring. You have Trubisky, you have Bortles, you have Carr, you have Minshew. Now, am I coming out here and saying that Trevor Lawrence is bad? Am I saying that Trevor Lawrence is the next play? Of course not. I mean, I think we know at this point that Lawrence is good enough to not rank him there. And I do have Lawrence ranked currently at 13 overall in my Dynasty Superflex rankings. So yeah, I'm ahead of market on Lawrence, Purdy, and Tua. I like building around quarterbacks early in my Dynasty Superflex rankings, but nonetheless, I do think I have to have Tua and Purdy ahead of Lawrence. I think I have to have Tua number one on this list because we've seen it over a large sample consistently now. While you can make the argument, well, Mason, if you took Trevor Lawrence and put him on the Niners, he would be even better than Brock Purdy is, blah, blah, blah. That's not ever happening. Is Brock Purdy ever being traded to Jacksonville? Is Lawrence ever being traded to San Fran soon? No. I mean, it doesn't matter if you think it's the situation for Tua, if you think it's the situation for Brock Purdy. They're in these situations. The situations look great for the foreseeable future. Not much looks like it's going to change. So both guys are round one startup picks for me. And yeah, this is essentially why I was really hoping Trey Lance is going to come in here and be the starting quarterback and have this situation plus the rushing upside. But clearly, Shanahan made the right decision starting Purdy for Purdy turning out to be the most efficient quarterback in the NFL in a great situation. But I think that's all I have for y'all in this video. If you enjoyed it, please go down there, hit that like button. Let me know in the comment section why you're valuing Trevor Lawrence over Brock Purdy or Tua, because I don't get it at this point. And if you wanted to check out any of those rankings, you can find them for free on flockfantasy.com. For the community rankings, obviously, my rankings will be behind a paywall with a couple other things. And if y'all wanted to access everything over there on flockfantasy.com, that's behind the paywall. Promo code FLOCK, get you 30% off any subscription. And yours truly will break down your fantasy football team in a podcast for you. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day and really hope you get to see you out with the video sometime soon.